All right, David Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones, Quinn Walker, and Christian Watson did not participate in practice. Romeo Dobbs, RG, Sean Gary, and Elton Jenkins were all limited. And then Anthony Johnson was full participant.
We saw Quay out there doing some stuff with the trainers at least. Does that signal that he's pretty far along as far as the protocol goes?
Yeah, he's in the protocol. That's all I know.
When he had that pick and scored, you could see his teammates were obviously really excited, and so were you. When did you realize that maybe he wasn't quite, like he came over and high-fived you, but it looked like he probably saw that he was kind of losing.
I didn't, in the moment, I had no idea. So, yeah. I thought he was just tired because he just ran 60-some-odd yards or whatever it was.
Do you see any rust from Rashawn in his first game back, and what did you think of what he did in those 12 snaps he had?
I thought he was pretty darn effective. I think we had him for, I don't know what the rest of the gurus out there had him for, but I think we had him for 7 pressures on the quarterback. So I'd say that was pretty effective.
Does that mean the pitch count is out the window this Sunday?
We'll see. I think we're still going to be smart with him. I mean, we have a long road in front of us, and certainly he's a guy that you want on the field at all times. But I also think that, as a staff, and it's a credit to everybody up front, we have more depth than we've had maybe ever in my time here. So that is a little bit more comforting, and so we'll roll those guys pretty much throughout the entire game.
With Romeo, what's the biggest way in which you've seen him grow from the end of last season to the start of this year?
Romeo, I think just overall knowledge of our offense and the details, and I think that's probably the natural progression for most young players. I think, when you're relied upon early in your career, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose, so to speak. I mean, there's a lot coming at you, and so you're almost in survival mode. I think the more you play, the more reps you get, the more the game slows down. You can understand some of the different looks and whether it's running certain routes, just more the fundamentals of the game and the finer details of the position, how to get open. So I think he's grown a lot.
With Aaron Jones, the hamstring, was kind of a rest day for him, give another day before it gets out there, or is the hamstring just not where it needs to be right now?
Well, we're going to give him through the course of the week before we make any determination on him.
Matt, what was your reaction to Aaron Rodgers' injury the other night? I know he had a similar injury back in 2019. Just your thoughts on what has happened to him and that his season is, I guess, not this year.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel for him and never want to see anybody go through that. I think anytime you have a player of his caliber not playing the game of football, it's bad for our game. So thoughts are certainly with him, and I know I've got so much respect for him. I've said it a million times, just how tough he is, the competitor he is. And I knew when he went back down to the ground, it had to have been something serious because I've seen him play through so much.
Matt, I know you weren't rehabbing to play quarterback in the NFL, but you were 40, which is what he's going to be when that happened. How difficult is that to come back from, just to be functional?
Well, I know I'm an elite physical specimen, but I would think that somebody of his caliber, I would bet that he would have no problem coming back from it. I really believe it. I know the type of worker he is, and so it's just going to be a choice of whether or not he wants to continue to play or not.
Did you reach out to him at all, Matt?
I did. I shot him a text.
Matt, you were talking about not getting comfortable on Monday. Jordan doesn't strike me as anyone who would ever get that way, but what does he do now after having a good debut as the starter? What does he do now to build on that? How do you kind of push him as his coach?
Yeah, I think this game's all about consistency, and you got to build upon a solid performance. And I think the more reps he gets, the more confident and more comfortable he will get. And I thought, all in all, he had a really good day, and we're going to have a more difficult challenge in front of us. Just in some of the things that Atlanta does, they're a very aggressive defense. I think they're very good up front and can generate a lot of pressure, and they're going to challenge you on the perimeter. So I think every week is a different challenge in terms of what somebody does or maybe the personnel, whatever it may be. And so it's just the next challenge.
Offensively with the Falcons, the two running backs they have, how do they kind of complement each other, and what makes them kind of difficult to continue?
Well, they're extremely difficult to tackle, and you can see the offense kind of runs through those two guys. Bijan obviously had a very impressive day, I would say, for any time a rookie can go out there, and I just kept seeing him break tackles and making plays. And but I think both those guys, are very, very good backs that you've got to try to contain the best you can. And I think their offensive line does a really good job of coming off the ball, creating movement up front, creating space for those guys to run.
Along those lines, your run defense, I think you have like a little over 3 yards of carry when you take fields out of it. What did you see that you like in that regard?
I thought our guys were for the most part playing gap sound and playing with good fundamentals, and we did some movement up front. I thought that was helpful. But again, every week's another challenge, and this one's going to be a really good challenge for us.
You talked a lot about your defense being more aggressive this year. I don't know if you think that was the case on Sunday. Looked like it, but what has allowed you to be more aggressive with essentially the same group this year?
Well, I think we've spent a lot of time kind of studying ourselves in the off season and things that we could potentially do, and that's what really life's all about, is learning and growing and trying to get better each and every day. And I thought we had good work throughout the course of the off season, dating back to OTAs, and we got to continue to build upon that.
When your DBs lead the way with physicality and run support and things like you saw in week 1, does that reverberate throughout the rest of the team? Does that send a message and bring everyone along? If you got like Rasul doing that and Ja doing that from the jump?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was Darnell, it was Rudy Ford, Keyshawn. They all had big plays in that game. I think you always expect your bigs, whether it's the front seven on defense, whether it's your offensive line on offense, to kind of be the enforcers. When you're getting that from more of your skill positions, I think that intensifies the physicality of your defense or offense, whatever side of the ball you're on. So I think that's an important part of it.
You've talked about the learning curve that comes with rookie tight ends. How do you feel that Musgrave and Sims held up as blockers on Sunday?
Yeah, I thought for the most part, they did a nice job. I think there's certainly things to work on, and hopefully that these guys. One of the things that we've talked about with our squad is, you've been through your first week of the regular season in terms of how you prepare on a daily basis, how you're taking care of your body, and now it's about refining that process. And so I think it's only natural to expect, whether it's our team or any other team in the league, is that you learn and grow from that, and you're better the next week. So we expect to see that jump this week.
Go ahead, Chase.
I'm not asking the dreaded, how does it feel to run your offense question. I
Don't
am curious.
ask it.
I'm not going to.
Okay.
I am curious though, other than can plays, how many times did the quarterback run something that wasn't what the play call was on Sunday?
Other than the time that I didn't get him a play in a timely manner, I don't think there was one time.
From your year together in Tennessee, how well do you know Arthur Smith?
Oh, Art, I know Art well. He's a guy that I got a ton of respect for. Just having worked with him in Tennessee, I'd always heard about him, and just how much respect I have for the work that he would put in on a daily basis. I mean, he was always one of the guys that would be one of the first in the building and one of the last to leave. And he's a guy that when I was a coordinator that I would always lean on in terms of our game plan. So I think that, he did a great job as the coordinator, in Tennessee, and I think he's doing a heck of a job in Atlanta. I really do, and he's a guy that I'll always respect. Just the work, the man. I've seen him as a dad. I've seen him as a husband. You know, he's got a great personality. He's extremely dry, and he brings some levity to the room. And but I mean that obviously in a very good way. So I just think he's all around awesome person.
You've had a lot of them over the years, but does a noon road game pose any sort of challenge for getting a team ready?
Well, these guys, they're professionals, and certainly I think that it was good that we experienced noon game in the preseason, just in terms of how you got to get up and you got to be ready to go early in the morning, how you fuel, eating breakfast, all that stuff, I think is an important part of it. So I think every week's a challenge, no matter what time you're playing, where you're playing. But I think having gone through that for most of those guys, I think that was an important part.
You ran a lot of guys in and out on offense at the skill positions, tight end, wide receivers. Is that something you did because it's the first game of the year and you're worried about, football conditioning, or is that something you plan on doing all year long?
I would expect it all season, to be honest with you. Just in terms of we've got, although it may look like the same personnel grouping to a defense, we might call it something a little bit different in terms of who we're putting in the game for maybe specific jobs, or trying not to overload, certain individuals so they feel good about what the plan is, what they're being asked to do, and but that can change on a weekly basis.